Auburn quarterback Payton Thorne in his first media appearance since his performance against Cal. I mean, he said everything you'd want him to.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. I jumped on with our good buddy Ben Taylor on his radio show, Auburn Opelika This Morning. We talked Payton Thorne, because what else are we talking about these days?
I have been asked by Daryl Dapprich on Monday, Charlie 5 on Tuesday. I'm sure we're about to discuss it as well on Wednesday. Yes. And that is, do we need a Hank Brown intervention at this point?
I mean, right now, I think there's a lot of arguments to starting Hank Brown. I get where Hugh Freeze is coming from, and I loved his rationale. I loved his answer when asked about making a change at quarterback. And he said, look, I have a hard time not starting the guy who's been great at practice, which makes sense. But then he took it a step forward. But it's like, if it doesn't transfer to the game, then what are we doing? Then it doesn't matter. And so you understand why he started Payton up to this point. I think Payton's performance on Saturday surprised Freeze and the coaching staff. I think they truly thought he had taken this step forward. But the argument, I think, for Thorne over Hank Brown, Holden Geriner, and Walker White is the higher floor. Mm-hmm. And if you're leading an offense that turns it over 5 times against Cal, that's not a very high floor. So to me, I do think you have to have that conversation.
Yeah, one of the turnovers was Jaquez, but the other 4 were at the helm of Payton Thorne, and said it Monday, said it Tuesday. Might as well say it again today. Any of those quarterbacks could have had 4 turnovers, so you could have just gone with any of them because you still get the loss. There's 4 turnovers there to look at. Walker White, as a true freshman, could have done that, and then you would have been like, oh, it's a true freshman. They were kind of forcing him into a bad decision. But when it's a 5th-year senior, it means a lot more when there are 4 turnovers behind your name.
Ben, let me ask you this. Does Auburn have 5 turnovers if Hank Brown plays the whole game? If you had to guess.
I think they have 2. I don't think they have 5.
Okay. Auburn wins if they just have 2, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree on that?
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Does Auburn score more than 14 points if Hank Brown plays the whole game?
Jury's out, but I would probably say yes, just because I think he's
impossible to know, but probably, right?
I think he's more apt to get it to receivers down. He's a gunslinger. I mean, there's where the turnovers come in with Hank. Hank takes chances that other people don't take. So that's some of the turnovers that came over, and another one that should have been a turnover. That was not pass interference in the end zone. So it should have been 5 turnovers.
Out for sure. Yeah, we're kind of forgetting that one. And I don't think the staff is really talking about that one either. And I'm like, I think that was the worst one.
No, it was the worst one because he threw to the inside, the receiver went to the outside. And so, Hank Brown does not have, let's call it 5 turnovers. Hank Brown does not have 5 turnovers if he plays Saturday. He maybe has 2. Auburn probably wins. But then you still have a quarterback controversy, because if you're going to put a C on the shoulder of a quarterback, then you're going to wear the egg on your face when you put that captain on the sideline for somebody else.
Got it. Yeah.
So that is what I see from Freeze. But I will say, Payton Thorne has taken full responsibility for this. He knew he had a bad game.
He has. Yeah. He went on the next round on Tuesday. And I mean, I think he answered it like a veteran quarterback who just had a bad game should. No question. The answer, and I guess how he answered it that was most interesting to me, was the next round guys. I think it was Brown asked him about, your coach Hugh Freeze talked about, having a smaller package of plays that you take in the next few weeks and he's like, yeah, that's what he said, and I think that's going to be the plan. But I don't think he likes that, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't. To me, I mean, I think that's such a jarring thing to say publicly about your quarterback. And then, because now your quarterback's going to be asked like, oh, you can't handle the game plan. And I don't think Payton Thorne feels that way, which you shouldn't. If you're a competitor playing quarterback, you shouldn't feel that way. You should be able to say, yes, I've been playing college football for a long time. My grandfather was a coach. My dad was a coach. It's like, I can handle the mental aspect of it. Like, I get why Hugh Freeze said that publicly, but now, like, thinking about it and Payton having to like answer questions about it, like, I do think that's kind of a tough thing. It's like, you probably didn't need to say that publicly in retrospect, but I get why he did it.
No, and that's the thing. Like, there will be people that will come out and they will say that it shouldn't have been said. However, my response to that is now, because I'm just going to go ahead and call it 5 turnovers, 6 total, because that one should have been a turnover. Don't hang 5 turnovers around your neck, and you're not open for the criticism that you got coming your way. Now, with that said, I did find it hilarious in the interview how he referred to people are hitting him up on Venmo asking for money because they lost, and then but he said the quiet part out loud. He said, you know what? They're not sending me money when we win them money. So I've been a little curious how that goes. So I do appreciate the fact that he understands what happened Saturday. He's not defending it in any way whatsoever. As you just said, though, are there some things that probably could have stayed in the locker room and maybe not made its way out? Yeah, I believe so. But with that said, I don't know that I know Hugh kind of he said to the media earlier in the week, I'm always going to be honest with you guys. So when you ask about a change taking place on Saturday, I'm not going to tell you that there's not going to be a change, but I am going to tell you we're going to see how the week goes. So I don't know all of those. I hope that he doesn't get the boo birds when he steps out. I think that Payton Thorne will be the guy under center come Saturday against New Mexico.
Yeah, I certainly think he's the most likely option to start on Saturday, 100%. But you got to think if it goes south quickly, that he will get pulled. But the thing is, Ben, it's New Mexico this weekend. I know people are saying New Mexico lasted 3 quarters against 20th ranked Arizona or whatever, but
their defense is terrible. It's terrible. Our guys are going to have a field day.
I would think so. And if they don't, then you pull Payton quickly and you see if what Hank can do against this defense. It's been really bad every step of the way this season. But to me, like, I think New Mexico is closer to Alabama A&M than they are to Cal. I mean, just to kind of, do the whole transitive property of college football that I hate. But like, New Mexico's not a good team. So we'll see. We'll see exactly how Payton Thorne responds and then how the coaching staff responds to what he does. But I mean, you would almost, like, if you're going to have to make a change at some point, you would almost want him to let you know this week, because then, you're ready going into the conference play and you can kind of know who your starting quarterback is going to be. Because, like, whoever is at quarterback, if it's Payton, if it's Hank, whoever, like, there's gonna be another bad game. Like, Auburn goes to Athens. Like, what do you do if it's still Payton and he's held on to the job for that long, and like he doesn't play well in Athens? Well, it's like, well, you're on the road in Athens. Auburn has had a quarterback play well there in like my lifetime, it feels like. So it's like, do you pull him then going into the bye week, and then his first, then you put Hank's first start on the road against the Missouri team who's probably going to be top 10? That's tough. That's a big ask. So it's like, if you're going to do it, like, now is the time to do it. And I'm sure that's weighing on the mind of this coaching staff as well.
I'm going to ask you a little bit about Saturday as well, coming up. But first, who are we promoting today?
Yeah. Let's jump into that. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Ben, have you ever wondered what it's like to be a head coach of a football program?
Boy, have I, but not during NIL. I'm glad I'm not.
Sure. Well, with Ultimate College Football Head Coach, it's a free app. It's a free app that you can download on your phone, and you can jump into the shoes of Hugh Freeze, of any program that you want. You can choose how much you want to tackle and build your program through the recruiting ranks or the transfer portal. It's very, very fun in this simulation. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want, when you want to. And we've got a code for Locked On Auburn listeners. Use promo code Locked On CFB. All caps. It has to be all caps. Locked On CFB. No spaces inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Download the game by visiting ultimate-cfb.com or just search for it on your phone's app store. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Ben, you wake up early to do a morning show. You understand how important caffeine is, and early afternoon, it hits you. It hits you. And sometimes you still got to get stuff done. 5 Hour Energy is a great way to tackle that wall that just appears in the middle of the afternoon. To still get stuff done, to hit a workout, whatever it means to be productive, 5 Hour Energy can help you with that. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com to get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. That is 5hourenergy.com, the number 5hourenergy.com, promo code LOCKEDONCFB. Ben, New Mexico is not a good football team. It's not a good football team, and I'm excited to see how the Tigers handle them this weekend.
My question is, because we've been talking this Payton Thorne talk, do they put him in a position to succeed? Or with New Mexico's awful run defense, do we see a lot of the running backs this Saturday? And Payton Thorne really doesn't have an opportunity to either shine or fail. He's more of a game manager that is going to hand the ball off a ton of times and may have 15 throws total all day long.
Yeah, I think you got to push the quarterback still, because if Auburn's gonna, if they're gonna win 7 or 8 games, like, you need to figure out who your quarterback is. So to me, I still think you put it on Payton. I still think you put it on whoever the starting quarterback is, assuming it is Payton on Saturday, because we still got a good feeling about the running game, even though we haven't seen it. Like, the small glimpses of us seeing it has looked good. I mean, Auburn was able to run it on Cal. Reese talked about that in his presser on Monday. Like, they were able to run the ball. It's just they didn't do it a ton. And when they opened up the offense, Reese is like, "Yeah, we had guys open. We just turned it over." It's like, got it, man. We're just really hammering that. We're just really hammering that. So, to me, like, this staff has been very, or I guess Freeze has been very public in saying, yes, we got guys open. They didn't get the ball to them, which to me is alarming, and you got to do something about it.
And let's play scenarios here. What if he just has a decent first half and Freeze and the staff decide, you know what? We're up 20. Let's go ahead and throw Hank in and push it a little bit. And then Hank goes out there and goes 20 of 22 with 220 yards, through the air in the second half. And then that's going to make it worse, Zach. I mean, I think within the program, I think it will push Payton a little bit more. So it could be good within the program. But for the talking heads, as well as us, as well as some of the fans, there's going to be a meltdown of why Hank Brown, who just threw for 220 yards and went 20 of 22 passing, is not under center when Arkansas rolls around the following week.
Yeah. And these conversations are a little weird because like, Hank's been coming on my show for 2 years. So I've got to be careful with how I address this. But like, I do think Hank's ceiling is far higher than Thorne's.
I agree with
that. And I said it at the beginning of our conversation. The argument for Thorne has always been has the highest floor because of the experience. And I don't think you can make that case anymore. I just don't. I just don't think you can. You know, Thorne brings a running element, which was effective, especially a year ago, because they needed it. They needed that aspect of the game. If guys weren't getting open like they weren't a year ago, I think you make the argument for Thorne. But guys are getting open, and you can't get the ball to them. And I'm confident that Hank will be able to get the ball to them. And I also it's just clear that Thorne looks shook and uncomfortable. And I think Hank has that it factor. We saw it a little bit in the bowl game, then we saw it in the small sample size against Alabama A&M. But like, that dude just doesn't really get to seem, he doesn't seem rattled by anything.
No.
Small sample size. We haven't really seen him in it yet. But I think that's been a strength of his. And that's why I was so high on him coming out of high school, is the moxie, the confidence, the poise. I think, I think Payton's leash should be very, very short. And I think if you go up 14-0, you put Hank in just to see. I think you put him in when the game is still there. You put him in there with the starters and you let him rip it. Let's see what it looks like.
Well, and I agree with that. And the reason being is because I ran this scenario down. I was talking to my dad. He was asking me about possible change. I said, well, here's the thing. Auburn was picked to go possibly 5-0 to begin the year. Cal was not one of the losses. And so if now you lose to Arkansas or you lose to Oklahoma, or if you lose to Oklahoma and then lose to Georgia, at that point, you're looking at maybe 6 wins if you're lucky in order to make things happen. And when do you go, okay, Thorne is done at the end of the year. Gurner's probably leaving as a graduate transfer. So Hank Brown's my starter moving forward after Georgia throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, internally, since Freeze has been hired, the belief was 2025 was a year you can make the college football playoff. That's the year internally that they all said, this is it. We're going all in on 2025. And if that's the case, like, you need to figure out if Hank can do it.
Yeah.
If Hank could be your quarterback in 2025. So, like, my thing, I said this on a Locked On Auburn earlier with Kyle. If it's close, you start Hank Brown. Because then you get to learn more about your roster for 2025, which is the year that you guys all said was so important. And I agree. It makes sense from a timing standpoint. Your third full year. Yeah, let's launch it. Let's see if you can make a true run there. Because if he's not it, then and you go get a quarterback in December in the portal.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's pretty clear. But I mean, one of your scenarios, like if Auburn loses to Arkansas, and you got to start having the conversation of like, can you make a bowl game? I mean, that'd be a brutal hole to be in if Auburn loses to Arkansas next weekend.
And so, and as I said, because if it's a loss to Arkansas, then it's probably going to be a loss to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is better than Arkansas. And then, of course, going into Georgia, we're not even going to pretend that Georgia's going to be heavily favored when Auburn goes into Georgia. And let's just call it what it is.
They should be.
Yeah,
they absolutely should be.
Exactly. They're the number one team in the nation, and they're there for a reason. I mean, they've got a lot of returning starters as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, as you said, if it's 2025 and if you've got a couple of losses already under your belt heading into Georgia, you need to go ahead and play for 2025 because at this point, you're right. Bowl scenario is probably out of the question, and you need to go ahead and see what your future lines up. And you know where it lines up as far as the outsides, and then you got to play internal recruiter and make sure none of these guys leave in the offseason because you're not doing what you can as a staff to keep them here with surrounding them with good players.
That hasn't been a problem yet with this staff.
Right.
I don't anticipate that being a major problem this offseason. So we'll see, but it's only a problem once it happens. But I can't imagine that these younger class guys, your true sophomores and your true freshmen, that they weren't told that like 2025 was the year.
Correct.
I can't imagine.
No, I think so.
That didn't come up.
Well, if they weren't,
and Freeze went out of his way to like praise those guys too in the presser yesterday. He's like, I forgot what the question was, but then he like answered the question. And he's like, I'm not having that problem with my young guys. It's like, yeah, we know what you're doing, Freeze. You don't want them to leave. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. And I don't blame you. Blame you. So, yeah.
Well, and he's got to get Perry Thompson more than one snap on Saturday if that's going to be the case, because that's all he was on the field for this past week. So that's an interesting scenario as well. Zach, how do they find you? Where do they listen to you? How do they catch you?
Yeah, Locked On Auburn, wherever you get your podcasts. Also on YouTube, and we've launched Auburn's newest message board, thebarnauburn.com. Ben, for all of my folks watching and tuning in, how can they check out everything you've got going on?
Weekday morning, 6 to 9 on News Talk WANI. Our sports is just after 7, where you can hear the Charlie Fives of the world and the Daryl Dappriches as we have them on as well as Jacob Goins. He's the voice of the Auburn High Tigers, who had a big win over Opelika this past Friday night. So we'll see.
Also the host of Locked On Hoosiers.
Yes, and
also the host of Locked On Hoosiers.
Locked On Hoosiers.
Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.